Forgiveness and agape love. The power to free and heal. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood and underestimated forces in human life. At first glance, it seems soft, perhaps even passive or weak. But true forgiveness, when rooted in agape love, is one of the most courageous and powerful choices a person can make. Agape is a Greek term found in early Christian texts, referring to unconditional love. Love that gives without expecting a return. Love that acts for the good of the other regardless of merit or emotional convenience. Unlike eros, romantic love, philia, friendship, or storge, familial affection, agape is rooted in the will. It is not based on attraction, familiarity, or comfort. It is based on a conscious decision to seek the highest good for another person. When forgiveness is grounded in agape, it becomes a force of transformation, not just for the person being forgiven, but for the one offering it. Forgiveness isn't just about letting someone else off the hook. It's about letting yourself out of the prison of bitterness, resentment, and anger. In theological terms, it is a participation in divine mercy. In psychological terms, it is an active choice to release the toxic burden of unforgiveness from your nervous system. Imagine someone hurt you deeply. The betrayal pierced something sacred in you. The pain, like a thorn lodged beneath the skin, lingers. Forgiveness does not say, "It didn't matter." It says, "It mattered immensely. But I refuse to let it rule me." That's agape. It is not denial. It is truth infused with mercy. To a young mind, let's say your friend ruins your favorite drawing or says something really mean. You feel angry, but instead of staying mad forever or doing something mean back, you tell them, "That really hurt me. But I'm going to forgive you." That doesn't mean you forget what happened. It means you're choosing to let it go, so your heart doesn't stay full of anger. Back at the higher level, in trauma psychology, holding on to anger can keep the brain in a constant state of threat. Cortisol levels stay high, sleep is disturbed, the body remains ready to defend itself, even when the danger is long gone. Forgiveness, then, is not just a moral act. It's biological. It reprograms the threat response and creates space for peace, clarity, and healing. But there's a critical distinction. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Forgiveness is a unilateral decision to release. Reconciliation is a mutual restoration that involves accountability, safety, and trust. You can forgive someone and still never speak to them again. Agape gives the strength to forgive without pretending that everything must go back to the way it was. Jesus modeled agape on the cross, not when things were easy, but when he was being crucified by the very people he came to save. His words, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," were not passive. They were radical. He chose to love even in agony. That kind of love doesn't emerge from emotion, it comes from a divine source. Agape is not permission for abuse. It is not a call to stay in harmful dynamics. It is an internal disposition that says, "Even if you wrong me, even if you never apologize, I will not let hate deform me. I will love you with truth. I will set boundaries if needed, but I will not be consumed by vengeance." Another child-friendly example: if your classmate keeps cutting in line and you keep forgiving them, it doesn't mean you let them keep doing it. You might tell the teacher or ask them to stop, but you forgive so you don't carry anger with you. You stand up for yourself and keep your heart clean. Returning again to the higher conceptual ground, forgiveness can be a daily act. In long-term relationships, forgiveness may not be a single moment but a process. Sometimes we must forgive someone for the same wound, over and over until our hearts catch up to the choice. Agape is what makes that repetition possible. It fuels the hard, steady work of choosing love over bitterness, even when the world tells us to get even. And there is another truth. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is ourselves. We hold shame, regret, and guilt like armor. But agape includes self-forgiveness. If God's love is freely given, who are we to withhold it from ourselves? True forgiveness flows outward and inward. It breaks the chain of self-condemnation and calls us back to grace. In therapy, this is often described as self-compassion. In spiritual life, it is humility, recognizing your own need for mercy and accepting that you, too, are being made new. When you forgive, you reclaim your narrative. The pain may still exist, but it no longer writes your story. You are no longer bound to the wound. You are free, not because justice was done, but because love triumphed. This is not easy. It requires strength. It requires time. It requires grace. But agape love makes it possible, not by erasing the truth, but by illuminating it with mercy. Forgiveness, when rooted in agape, is not a detour from justice, it's the beginning of a deeper kind of justice. A justice that restores rather than punishes. A justice that gives life back to the wounded. Agape sees the person behind the sin, the soul behind the scar. It does not excuse evil, but it refuses to let evil define reality. Forgiveness, then, is an act of spiritual resistance. It declares that healing is possible even after harm. In the end, forgiveness through agape is not weakness. It is the ultimate display of power, not domination over others, but dominion over the self. It is choosing to say, "What happened to me was real, and it hurt. But I am more than what was done to me. I am free." That is agape. That is forgiveness. And that is the beginning of peace.